At this time, I'd like to call the Nash County Board of Commissioners meeting to order for October the 2nd, 2023. It is customary for us to begin each one of our meetings with a invocation by a sitting commissioner and also the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, which Commissioner Outlaw would lead us in. During this time, of course, you're welcome to join us by standing in the prayer that Commissioner Wilkins will deliver. You're welcome to use it for your own prayer, or you're welcome to use it for a moment of silence, or whatever you're led this morning. This time, Commissioner Wilkins will have the invocation.
Let us all pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning giving you thanks and praise. We pray for your guiding hand in the decisions we make and the things we say and do. Help us to trust in you to bestow upon us the knowledge that in you we can find strength, courage, and guidance to face the challenges that lie ahead. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Could you join us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're now on item 4, which is approval of the minutes for the previous month. And we had 3 meetings. September the 6th was our regular meeting. September the 18th was the second meeting of the month, and September the 26th was an additional meeting. At this time, I'd entertain a motion for approval of all 3 sets, or any changes or additions that someone sees needs to be added to it.
Make a motion we approve all 3 sets of minutes.
Have a motion to approve all 3 sets. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Minutes stand approved, and thank you, Madam Clerk. Item 5 is a time of public comment, which means each one of our meetings, the first of the month, we allow citizens to come and speak to the board, or we invite, I wouldn't say we allow, that's a bad choice of words, citizens to come and speak to the board about anything they have on their mind. We do have a sign-up period out front up to the time the meeting starts. If you happen to miss that, I'll take the ones that signed up first, and then we would invite you to come up as we try to be pretty lenient with that and really like to hear from our citizens. I had one person to sign up this morning, which was a Cecil Williams, and call on Mr. Williams to come forward at this time and state your name and address for the record. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Morning.
My name is Cecil Williams, 6765 Jordan Road, Elm City, North Carolina. Is this available? I had a item before the commissioners on September, I think it was the 6th, and on September about the 6th or 7th, as it's required here in the Nash County regulations, any person wishing to make a more formal presentation should contact the county manager at least 2 weeks prior to the scheduled meeting. I think it was on the 6th or the 7th, I spoke to 2 people in the county officials, and one of those referred me to another county official, and I stated what I wanted to do, and I wanted a formal meeting with the commissioners, and no one's gotten back to me for missed 2 meetings. So I am taking that as a denial of my opportunity to discuss the item with the commissioners. And I'll just leave it at that. I just wanted to bring it to the entire board so that it would be on the record. And I appreciate the time of the board.
Mr. Williams, do you wish to go over what you had in mind this morning? You want to do it at a later time? I'm one of the people you called, I don't know if I did not understand you wanted to be on the agenda or didn't understand it, quite frankly.
I don't
remember that
expect to
far
be
back.
treated any different than anybody else.
Sure.
When the public comment section, so I don't think it's proper for me to engage the board in a public comment section.
Okay, that's fine. Do you want to be placed on a future agenda? Do we control
Well,
the range?
that's up to the board, and that's up to the county officials. I take it as a denial up until this point. And I'm not being hard to get along with. I want this issue resolved. The commissioners can vote any way, and I guess I'll just say this much. The commissioners can vote any way they want to vote.
Understand.
But when I take real big calls or question with the motion.
Okay,
And anyway, and it was a unanimous vote it was recorded as a unanimous vote.
It
So
was.
I'll leave it at that. Thank you all so much.
thank you, sir. Is there anyone else wish to speak in public comment? Seeing no movement, we'll move to item number 6, which is a public hearing for sale of Nash County property for purpose of economic development. And I'll call on our Economic Development Director, Andy Hagee, at this time to make this presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, this is for a public hearing for the sale of Nash County property for the purpose of economic development. The action proposed is to hold the public hearing and approve resolution, which you have before you. The description is, again, a notice of a public hearing to approve sale of Nash County property by private negotiation pursuant to economic development. Pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 158-7.1, please be advised that the Nash County Board of Commissioners will conduct a public hearing to receive public input on a proposed resolution approving the conveyance of a simple fee interest in real property to an industrial prospect that has announced its intent to purchase and improve the property in Nash County and create tax base and jobs. The property consists of the Middlesex Shell Building 2 and 30 acres more or less situated in the Middlesex Corporate Center along US 264A and Middlesex Corporate Parkway in Middlesex, North Carolina, and being described as portions of minor subdivision plat recorded in map Book 44, page 20 and 21, Nash County Registry. The proposed consideration will be for a total of $4,644,575 for the real estate. The intent of the sale is to enhance the county's tax base, future job creation, and economic development growth. This notice and contemplated public hearing will comply with the requirements of the NC General Statute 158-7.1 concerning the sale of property for economic development purposes. After the public hearing, it is the intent of the Board of Commissioners to approve a resolution authorizing the sale of the property. The recommended action is that the staff is recommending the county commissioners hold a public hearing and approve the resolution authorizing the sale of property to Project Snowball for the purposes of economic development.
Any questions, Mr. Hagee, at this time from the commissioner? Thank you, Andy. I'll call for a motion to go into public hearing on this matter.
Thank you.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Combs. There a second to the motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Outlaw. Questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in a public hearing now on the proposal and the resolution for the county to dispose of property by selling it to a future industry in the Middlesex Industrial Park. If there's anyone here this morning that wishes to speak for or against this, we'd like to hear from you during this public hearing. Just come forward and state your name and address for the record. See no movement, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Outlaw, second by Commissioner Belfield. Questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries as well. Prior to calling for a approval of the resolution, I want to make sure commissioners don't have any questions of Mr. Hague at this time. Any more discussion you have on this matter? This is the second shell building, which of course we all know is adjacent to the first shell building in the Middlesex Industrial Park. It is been proposed to sell that shell building during construction, which we are in, pretty much finished up the shell part of it, and some adjacent land that goes with it for future needs of the industry that is known as, what's our code name, Andy, on that one? Snowball. No questions? I'd entertain a motion for approval of the resolution at this time.
Make a motion, we approve the resolution.
Motion by Commissioner Combs, there's a second to that motion.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Thank you, Andy. 7 is a public hearing on conditional rezoning request CZ 230901 on Strickland Road. I'll call on our planning director, Adam Tice, at this time to make this presentation. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. This is the first of 3 planning items on the agenda this morning. This is the only one that will require a public hearing. The subject property is the 3.08 acre undeveloped portion of land that you see highlighted in red on the screen. That's an aerial photo on the left and an excerpt from the zoning map on the right. It's located on the south side of Strickland Road, north of the actual town of Bailey, and it is currently zoned A1 agricultural. The property owner has submitted this rezoning request to rezone the property to GCCZ, General Commercial Conditional Zone, specifically for the development of an automobile repair and towing service to be operated by Jamie Bailey, who is the prospective purchaser of the property. Mr. Bailey's business is currently located here at the intersection of Strickland Road and Bryant Road. You can see that in the pinkish color on the zoning map here at the intersection of those 2 roads. The address of that property is 7085 Strickland Road. So this would be a relocation of the business from its current location to approximately 1/2 mile up the road to the site highlighted in red that we're considering this morning. Because this is a conditional rezoning, there is a submitted site plan. The site plan depicts a proposed 8,000 square foot metal building beside a customer parking area, and that is in front of a 14,700 square foot outdoor storage area in the back, and that storage area will be screened by a 6-foot high opaque fence. There is a 25-foot wide vegetated buffer proposed along the eastern or right-hand side here between the commercial operation and the residentially zoned property to the east. That buffer would be planted in order to screen the commercial activity from that adjacent residentially used property. A portion of the subject property that is not included in the rezoning is noted as Lot 1 on the site plan. That would be this rectangular area up here in the top left corner. That property is intended to remain A1 agricultural and would serve as a potential new home site for the prospective purchaser. Since this is a conditional rezoning request, it does allow for the board to attach reasonable site-specific development conditions with the consent of the applicant. When we review rezoning, we always consult our comprehensive land use plan as is required by state law. This is an excerpt from the future land use map of the comprehensive land use plan. The request is consistent with some of the recommendations of the plan and inconsistent with others. For instance, it is consistent with the recommendation that the property have frontage along and direct access to a state-maintained secondary road, in this case Strickland Road. It is consistent with the idea that it should be located in proximity to similar existing land uses, as this, as I noted, is a relocation of the same type of business from the intersection a 1/2 mile up the road. The size, scale, and potential impact of the commercial business will be limited by the restrictions of the proposed site plan and the development conditions that are attached to the request, and that is in an attempt to make this business context appropriate as recommended by the plan. But it is inconsistent with the plan's recommendation that non-residential land uses in this residential agricultural area be located within a quarter mile of a major intersection or an intersection identified by the plan as being a designated location for future commercial development. The board, and particularly those members who served on the committee to put together our comprehensive land use plan, will recall that there are multiple rural intersections throughout the county's jurisdiction that are identified by the plan for designated, encouraged additional commercial growth. This particular intersection is not one of those intersections. It does, however, have an existing non-residential commercial business located at it. But even then, the site, as I stated, is about a half mile from that intersection instead of the recommended quarter mile. So it does not comply with the location recommendation of the comprehensive land use plan. The other concern that we take into account is spot zoning. This is not an adjacent expansion of the existing commercial zone at the intersection, so this would be potentially considered spot zoning. However, it could be considered reasonable spot zoning because, as we already discussed, it's in relatively close proximity to that already existing commercial business. Number two, the limitations that would be placed on the commercial development and the use of the site by the conditional nature of the request should mitigate its impact on the surrounding community. And number three, the commercial services to be offered by the proposed automobile repair and towing operation will benefit the citizens of the surrounding area. On the other hand, the request could also be considered unreasonable spot zoning because the site is not located in or near an area previously identified by the county for continued commercial development. And the site is located in relatively close proximity to established and potentially incompatible residential dwellings. And you can see the address points on the map here, even though the aerial photograph is from 2021, prior to the development of some of these homes. You can see the dots that show you where the homes are located currently. The Technical Review Committee considered this request back on August 31st and recommended denial because the Technical Review Committee's job is to look at the technical aspects of the requirement, and the committee identified the fact we've already discussed, that it is not located within a quarter mile of a major intersection or an intersection specifically identified as a designated location for future commercial development. In this case, it is, the plan is only advisory, it's not regulatory, and those members of the board that worked on that committee will understand what that means. It does not carry the weight of an actual adopted regulation. We simply have to consult it. That means that it's the role of the planning board and ultimately this morning the Board of Commissioners to determine if approving this request would be a reasonable deviation from the recommendations of the plan that would serve the public interest. The planning board considered this request on September 18th. Both the property owner and the prospective buyer addressed the board in support of the request. There were no other members of the public present at the meeting. With a split vote of 6-1, the planning board recommended approval of the request subject to the suggested development conditions. And the board specified that it was because the request was for the relocation of a nearby already existing business to this site. You have suggested motions to approve or deny the request. Each motion comes with a statement of plan consistency and reasonableness that's been drafted by the staff. Under the motion to approve, you have 6 development conditions. I would call your attention to number 3, the requirement that no vehicles shall be disassembled or salvaged on the subject property outside of the building or the fenced and screened outdoor storage area that's depicted on the site plan. The rest of the conditions are fairly standard for a conditional rezoning request. I forwarded to the board last week a message that was received from Phyllis and Richard Langston via email. They are the property owners of the property at 7729 Strickland Road, which I'm a little far from the screen, but I think that is right there. And their concern is not necessarily related to the subject property, but the potential future use of the property immediately adjacent to them, and their desire to not see that used as a salvage yard in the future. Today's request does not impact that particular property, as it's restricted to the boundaries of the red that you can see on the aerial photograph. With that, I will pause and take any questions that the board has on the staff report.
Any questions of Mr. Tyson at this time from a board member?
Yeah,
Mr. Belfield?
I believe I read somewhere where the property owner, the lady, I don't recall her name, came to the board about a buffer, building a fence, and I'm not sure what I read, that the planning board gave that a consideration. Am I wrong or right?
The only interest we've received from the public on this particular request is the email that I just referenced that I forwarded to the board, and it does not refer to screening or a fence.
Yeah, I thought I just heard you say the person that made that request was quite a distance from it. You showing,
Yeah, the person that sent the email is located up here to the north, and didn't necessarily refer to a fence or a buffer. They were concerned about the future use of the property that is beside and behind them. Basically a concern that if this becomes an auto repair shop, in their mind, there's some concern that potentially some sort of salvage yard operation could spill over onto the adjacent property. And so their concern is about not allowing a salvage yard on the property that is next to them. But that is not what's being requested this morning.
Other questions? Go ahead.
Mr. Tyson, was the developer for this request okay with all the development conditions outlined in our agenda?
Yes, to my knowledge, they are. And I should mention that it's my understanding that the reason the business is having to be relocated is that a lease agreement is expiring at this location, and the property owner has a different use in mind for that commercial operation, which is what is driving the need to relocate the currently existing business.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
was Phyllis and Richard Langston notified after their email to us that their concern did not apply to the request this morning?
Yes, I spoke with them. I actually spoke with them on the telephone before they made the request and pointed that out, but they still thought it was important for them to share that with the
Okay,
board.
thank you.
Others?
Yes.
Mr. Ayrton?
Mr. Tyson, in your opinion, I guess, is how, if we approve this, that we wouldn't open Pandora's box for similar
Right.
requests throughout the county?
There was a lot of discussion about that at the planning board, particularly because this is the first time we've specifically had to contend with the new plan's recommendation that commercial development be within a quarter mile of one of our designated intersections. The way that the planning board dealt with that was by noting in their recommendation, and which has been carried forward in the statement of plan consistency and reasonableness, that in this particular case, they're only setting this precedent because it is the relocation of an existing building, an existing business located nearby. And so if the board approves this today, the statement of reasonableness and consistency will note that part of the reason for the approval is because it is an existing business. And so I think we're only specifically setting a precedent today for that particular situation. So if somebody comes and is looking to start a new business, the board would be able to make that decision freely without being tied to today's decision. This is a rather unique situation because you have an existing business that is evidently successful and looking to move slightly up the road from where it's located.
And yes, we probably have other businesses in the same situation that
We
would
could.
probably come forward with it. So
Right.
what the board, how can we position ourselves to be consistent?
Well, I think if you approve this today, then you will probably have to contend with this decision if you come into a similar situation in the future where you have an existing business. And so it's the board's job today to determine if a half mile in this particular set of circumstances is reasonable. And then I think because this is the first commercial rezoning decision we've made under the new plan, it will inform decisions going forward. But if you want to conform to the strict letter of the plan, then disapproval would probably be the correct action this morning. But that is a judgment that's left up to the board.
Others? Mr. Tyson, when I read the email about the easement, I evidently just misinterpreted. I thought the easement was on this piece of property that would get them to another piece of property.
I think-
Is it the case?
I think that there is a strip of land here that is wide enough to allow for the construction of a road potentially in the future, and that is the strip that the property owner, the adjacent property owner to the north, is referring to as the easement.
And there's no easement on this property we're rezoning.
I'm not aware of any easement on the subject property.
Did I also hear you say that the person that owns the business well, first of all, has this property already been purchased?
It has not, to
Okay.
my knowledge.
But did you say they're also purchasing that corner lot there that's left?
Yes.
With the thought they may reside there themselves?
Yes, so the property owner, who is technically the applicant, the current property owner, owns this entire triangle.
Okay.
And the thought would be if the rezoning is approved, Mr. Bailey, the prospective purchaser, would purchase the area outlined in red and then this rectangular lot here, which is, as of now, considered a potential new home site and would remain zoned A1 agricultural.
So he would surround his own self with the exception of the rear and a little bit on the side.
Correct. The only note I would make is that he does not currently reside on that property, and there'd be no requirement for him to, even though that is his current plan.
Gotcha, okay. You made a statement up front that the Land Development Code, and you made reference to the one that served on the committee, understood it. Would you elaborate a little bit more on that so the ones that weren't on the committee would understand how much of a guidance it is and non-regulatory action?
So the plan is advisory in nature, not regulatory. Part of the reason for that is that a land use plan has to look 10, 20 years in the future. And there's no way to write a plan that will accommodate all the specific circumstances that would arise in that period of time. And so in situations like this, where you have a request that is consistent with some of the recommendations and maybe inconsistent with other recommendations, it becomes a judgment call to be made by the Board of Commissioners. However, the board is not obligated to follow the letter of the plan at every rezoning decision. It'd be nice if we could follow the spirit of the plan in order to be consistent, but there's not a legal requirement that the board check every single box from the land use plan every time you make a rezoning decision. What is required is that we examine the plan, report on it, discuss it, and consciously make a decision about when we are following the recommendations and when we aren't. And I think we have settled that with the staff report today. So I think the board would be supported in either decision, but it really comes down to a judgment call about this particular set of circumstances.
In moving forward, would you expect the staff to always recommend denial when it doesn't meet every letter of the Land Development Code, or does the staff have any leeway at all?
I think the staff might have some leeway. I think we're hesitant at this point because the plan is so new. With the old plan, we had about a decade of knowledge of how the elected board consistently interpreted that. That gave us a little more confidence in stepping outside of the specific letter of the plan. If this became an issue, the plan itself could be amended. We could change the quarter-mile distance to something that is larger. So there's two factors there. I think the staff will become informed by the pattern that we apply the plan. We're still very early in the plan's life for that. And if that distance is too restrictive, we could always do an amendment to the plan to change that distance.
I think my last question is, if I can say it properly, would you expect this elected board to be guided more by the planning board, who analyzes this from the standpoint you indicated, or by the staff report itself, or a combination of the two?
I would say that I think it's a combination of the two, but what you have to realize is that the planning board has maybe the ability to take more factors into account that aren't directly related to just the technical aspects of the request. And the other thing is that the planning board has the benefit, which the technical review committee does not, of hearing from the public. And so the technical review committee makes a recommendation a little bit in a vacuum, whereas in, for example, this case, the planning board had the benefit of knowing that there were no concerned property owners in attendance at the meeting or providing any statements at that time.
And the only concern was, that showed up after the meeting, was this easement located somewhat
Which is
down
on
the
a
road.
different property.
Right, okay, thank you, sir. Any other questions?
Yeah, just got
Sure.
one question. So I'm looking down the road from a legal perspective. If you move this business down to this location, it becomes general commercial, I know, under conditions. But legally, in the future, if this individual wanted to add a business there that collected salvage vehicles, et cetera, what would be our legal, what would be our legal jeopardy there? I mean, how would you deny that going forward if you approve this business on this location?
Well, the business we're approving is for the repair of vehicles, not, a salvage yard is a different category on the table of permitted uses.
But you've opened it up to commercial.
You have opened it up to commercial.
So you've eliminated that spot zoning because this becomes another commercial area.
Right, but the Board of Commissioners could determine, in order for him to operate a salvage yard, which to be clear, I don't think is in his current set of plans, but hypothetically, if he wanted to operate a salvage yard, he would have to come before the board to add that use to the list of things that he could do on his property. And the board could determine at that time that auto repair is acceptable, but salvage yard would not be. You could also make restrictions of where on the property it could be done. And it absolutely could not spread onto the adjacent property without further action and public hearing by the board. But where you're correct is that once this property gets established as commercial, the next rezoning request would not have to contend with spot zoning because you've created an anchor of commercial zoning.
Across the street, for example, in an open lot.
Right.
So, and again, back to the TRC, the quarter mile versus half mile, I mean, I know it's an advisory thing, but, so what would you do? Possibly change it to a half mile, and then in the future, somebody had 3/4 of a mile, or what, would you just keep moving it out?
Right, well.
You got to have rules, you got to set some boundaries.
That's right. Well, I can tell you that the planning board has not necessarily said that they're comfortable with a half mile. All they've said is that they're comfortable in this particular situation because it's the relocation of an existing nearby business. And they specifically conditioned their recommendation for approval with that statement.
Well, I understand that, and what I'm uncomfortable with is opening up an area to commercial.
Sure.
That can become anything within commercial. And I would ask the lawyer, I don't know if he wants to comment on this, but what would be our reason for denying future commercial in that area? I mean, how could we legally do that?
Well, you have a conditional use
I understand
rezoning
that.
here.
You wouldn't be able to use spot zoning anymore, that's for sure,
That's a fact.
because you've allowed spot zoning.
That's a fact. mean,
I will
got-
say that-
I got a little bit of a problem with
Sure.
it.
Other comments before we go into public hearing?
Well,
Mr. Arrington?
see, well, I was on the Land Use Plan Development Committee also, so, basically what this boiled down to is, we created a land use plan so that, okay, I'm a future home buyer. And I look at that plan and say, a commercial property cannot come any closer than a quarter mile. So you go and change that, and now all of a sudden, I done bought some property now, a commercial property. So this is not just about this piece of property, it's about future home buyers and future business locations. So we either need to revisit the land use plan and consider all the factors that it would affect.
Ms. Leggett?
I think all the discussion's been very good today, and I really appreciate all the commissioners' input and what this new land use plan has created, our discussion. Just being able to look at it from the different angles, from the residential, from a business owner standpoint, and, how much leeway should we give our business owners in the area?
Okay. All right, there's no other comment. Thank you, Mr. Tyson. I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing on this matter at this time.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins, a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries, and ladies and gentlemen, we are in a public hearing at this time for the conditional rezoning request CZ 230901 Strickland Road. As has just been discussed, if there's anyone here this morning that wishes to speak in favor or against this item, we'd sure like to hear from you this time. Anyone here wishing to speak? Seeing no movement, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this
So
time.
moved.
Moved by Commissioner Combs, a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wilkins. Questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries. Adam, did you wish to say anything else before we go to the vote?
The only thing I would say is that the prospective buyer, Mr. Bailey, the business operator, I was informed this morning that he had a minor medical emergency in his family, and that's what prevents him from being with us this morning.
Okay. Only thing I'd like to say in closing is I hope our board, not in this case only, but in every case, completely realize that the Land Development Code is a guidance for the board. There's no way, as Mr. Tyson said, we can write a land development code that's going to cover every situation moving forward. Therefore, the general statutes allow leadway to the planning board as well as the Board of Commissioners to make those judgment calls after hearing from the public on what is the best thing to do with each request that comes before us. And you've heard me say many times before, I really put a lot of faith in, I think all commissioners should, in our planning board to do the deep dive into the public aspect of it. And we should certainly consider whenever we have public opposition or public speaking in favor of what has been said, because we just can't use the Land Development Code itself to guide us in every rezoning that we do. And with that said, I'd entertain.
I would like to say,
Excuse me, Mr.
something.
Arrington, go ahead.
yeah,
Go ahead.
well, Mr. Chairman, the citizens have to have confidence in our land use plan. And like I said, we're talking about future property owners and property owners that have property that they need to know when they read the plan that this is what's going to happen. And if we'll deviate from that, we need to make sure that we are consistent and that the property owners, future and present, will know what our plan really is, and that we are not going to be wavering on their value and their neighborhoods.
Other comments before I call for a vote? Entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I move the Board of Commissioners adopt statement of plan consistency and reasonableness below and approve the conditional zoning request.
And I don't think we said it is. Which district is it in?
Mr. Combs.
Mr. Combs, okay. All right, have a motion on the floor. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign?
Opposed?
No.
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 Motion carries, if I'm not mistaken, 4-3. Gwen, you did vote in favor of it. Okay. Motion carries 4-3. All right, we'll move on to item number 8, which is a subdivision waiver request, Poplar Run Phase 8 subdivision. And I'll call on Mr. Tyson, who is already with us, to go ahead with this item.
This request is for a subdivision waiver. It does not involve changing the zoning of the property, and so it does not require a public hearing. This is in Commissioner Arrington's district. The subject property is approximately 146 acres of undeveloped land. You can see it outlined in the aerial photo. It is currently owned by East Coast Timberland Incorporated, located on the north side of Nick Coley Road, Whitakers, north of the town of Red Oak, and it's in the A1 agricultural zoning district. The site is directly to the north of and behind the previous phases 3 and 7 of the Poplar Run subdivision. And you can see those roadfront lots down here on either side of the subject property. The property is just south of the Beaver Dam Swamp up here in the northern portion of the aerial photo. And it includes several streams that will likely be subject to 50-foot wide riparian buffers to protect them from disturbance. And you can make out some of the stream lines here in the aerial photograph. Stocks Engineering has submitted a sketch plan for the Poplar Run Phase 8 subdivision on behalf of the property owner. It proposes the development of this lot into 10 large new residential lots along a new private road. So you can see the private road joining Nick Coley Road here, coming in, ending in a cul-de-sac, and these are the 10 new large lots on either side. Private roads may access up to 10 lots, tracts, or parcels, and must satisfy the same minimum DOT construction standards as public roads, with the significant exception that they may be gravelled instead of paved. And of course, they are maintained by a private homeowners association instead of the DOT. Each of the proposed lots meet, and in this case, mostly exceed the dimensional requirements of the A1 zoning district, which includes the 40,000 square foot minimum lot area and a 100-foot minimum lot width. I don't think any of the proposed lots approach the minimum lot area. They're at least an acre or multiple acres, and in some cases greater than 10 acres over on the right-hand side of the image. The Nash County Public Utility Service is not currently available, so all 10 lots would be served by private on-site wells and septic systems. The Unified Development Ordinance does allow the Board of Commissioners to approve waivers of typical subdivision standards when there is a physical hardship presented to the developer, when the proposed solution provides either equal or better performance than the standard requirements of the ordinance, or in the event that there has been an unintentional error. You can attach conditions to the approval of a subdivision waiver in order to ensure that the underlying purposes of whichever standards are being waived will still be satisfied. The developer has come before the board with two waiver requests this morning. The first having to do with maximum cul-de-sac length. The length of the private road is approximately 1,500 feet. That exceeds the standard 1,200-foot maximum cul-de-sac length limitation. However, that section does further state, quote, "except where upon the recommendation of the planning board and the approval of the Board of Commissioners, existing conditions warrant a modification of this requirement." The developer has requested a waiver to allow the longer than typical private road on the grounds that, number one, the typical method that would be used to shorten a cul-de-sac length is to add an intersecting stub road to provide a connection from the primary road to an adjoining undeveloped property. The presence of multiple streams and related riparian buffers all around the private road make the addition of that intersecting stub road unfeasible. And therefore, the developer's argument is that requiring strict compliance with the standard cul-de-sac length limitation presents an unusual and unnecessary physical hardship, which of course is one of the three standards provided for by the ordinance. Number three, requiring a connection between the new road and an adjoining undeveloped property, which is in a separate ownership, would be inconsistent with the inherent nature of a private road. So typically, when we're looking at subdivision developments that propose publicly maintained roads, we have an interest in providing stub roads to the adjacent properties in order to create in the future an interconnected road network. That goal is not necessarily consistent with the nature of this road as a private road because the property owners presumably specifically want the road to remain private so it will not connect to adjacent properties. And they are responsible for its maintenance and upkeep as opposed to a road that is shared by the public and open to the public that is maintained with taxpayer funds. Subdivision waiver request number 2 has to do with the number of lots that are permitted on a private road. I noted earlier in the report that only 10 lots may be served by a private road, and you see 10 lots here. That's complicated a little bit by our local Department of Transportation district office, who has determined that lot number 9 of Poplar Run Phase 7, which is the little lot down here fronting on Nick Coley Road immediately to the west of the private road, that road will either need to be accessed from the new private road, its driveway will come off the private road, or it will need to have a shared driveway with the adjacent lot to the west. The intention of that requirement by the DOT is to satisfy the 100-foot separation distance between a new road down here and the nearest adjacent driveway. The problem with that, of course, is that adding an additional lot to the private road means that there'll be 11 lots served by the private road, which exceeds by 1 the limit of 10. However, in this particular case, lots 7 through 10, these large lots along the end and the right hand of the private road, all exceed 10 acres in size, which means they're exempt from our subdivision ordinance under state law, specifically a state statute that exempts them. So hypothetically, the developer could remove one of these lot lines in order to record a private road development that meets our requirements, and then could come back later with a map to establish one of those lines that would be exempt from our local control. The second waiver simply allows him to do that in one map and skip a step to get around a technicality. So we cannot prevent the subdivision of lots that are larger than 10 acres. So he could drop one now and record it with the 10 lots, counting the additional one down here on the left side of the road, and bring one of these other lots into existence later. Or with this waiver, he can accomplish it all with one step. So this waiver number 2 is really a matter of convenience for the developer to prevent him from having to record a separate map to create the same product that we're seeing on the screen right now. And so that request falls under the equal or better performance criteria of the ordinance. The Technical Review Committee considered this on August 31st. It was the technical review committee's meeting that revealed that the length of the road exceeded the typical standard allowance, as well as where we received input from the DOT. So the need for these waiver requests were identified at the technical review committee meeting, but of course the developer responded by applying for those waivers afterwards. So the TRC's recommendation does not specifically address the waiver request. The TRC simply recommended approval of the overall subdivision as long as these two matters were addressed legally. The planning board, however, did consider these two waiver requests on September 18th and voted unanimously to recommend approval of them both, subject to the development notes that are found in your staff report there. And the development notes really just outline the future requirements for a preliminary construction plat, and then post-construction, the recording of a final plat. You have a motion here to approve or deny each waiver. You could handle them separately or together at the discretion of the board. And I will stop and take any questions that the board has on the staff report.
Questions of Mr. Tyson at this time?
Yep,
Mr. Belfield?
I see four of these lots are huge.
Right.
Would they, to make them smaller, would they have to come before the Board of Commissioners or first the Planning Board?
Yes. The reason those four lots are large, the designer explained at the planning board, is because of the poor soil conditions. There's not as much septic system suitability or potential on the right-hand side of the proposed private road. But anytime that the developer wants to create a lot that's smaller than 10 acres, they would have to go through the staff, and in this case, because it's on a private road, the planning board, and they would need an additional waiver from the Board of Commissioners to create more lots on this road. So yes, what you see is the maximum of what they can get, unless one of those large lots happens to include 20 acres, which I can't recall, but if it did, that could be split under the exemption because you're creating two new 10-acre lots. There are some that are bigger, okay. So any of these lots that are bigger than 20, which it looks like 7, 8, and 9 are all bigger than 20, they could be split again, but that would only be practical if there was more than one septic system site there. And that split could take place exempt from county review because the resulting lots would be bigger than 10 acres.
Other questions?
Since this is a private development, what services does the county provide?
Law enforcement and emergency medical response.
What about trash removal? They're responsible for that themselves in a private development, right?
I would assume that the residents would be able to participate at our convenience sites, just like every other resident in
Yeah, but
county jurisdiction.
They have to do it themselves.
Yeah, the
Take it
county
to
does
these
not
sites.
provide any service for trash pickup.
Okay.
Other questions of Mr. Tyson? Mr. Tyson, is there a limit to the number of lots that can be on a private road?
There's a limit of 10,
Okay.
but the exception to that is if you create lots that are bigger than 10 acres that are totally exempt from county regulation, there's no limit to the number of lots bigger than 10 acres that could be on a private road because the state has afforded them special status.
But it seems like in our previous discussions on this out off of 43, I mean, you got a lot of lots here that aren't 10 acres, do you not?
Right. So you could never have more than 10 that were less than 10 acres.
So 10 is the maximum number. Okay.
As long as those 10, except for lots that are outside of our regulatory jurisdiction by virtue of their very large size being greater than 10 acres.
To your knowledge, do our school buses go on these private roads?
I am not sure about school bus policy.
What happens when the homeowner association doesn't maintain this road and emergency services, for instance, and maybe school buses can't access it?
Well, the property owners enter into a covenant with each other where they could hold each other responsible through civil court for paying the amount that's required. But if the property owners themselves don't take the initiative to maintain the road, then I suppose children would have to get on the school bus at the main road. And I can't really comment on emergency services other than to say I'm sure they would make every possible effort to respond. But when you establish a private road, the onus is on the residents to maintain it.
Do we have any instances where we have that issue in the county?
I'm not aware of any specifically.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Thank you, sir. Entertain a motion to go into public hearing on this matter, or am I going into public hearing?
No, you don't need a public hearing.
Motion to, no, we are not, excuse me. Well, I need a motion to adopt or reject the,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that the Nash County Board of Commissioners approve the first waiver to waive the standard 12-foot maximum length limitation in order to permit the proposed 15-foot private road based on a physical hardship.
are you doing them one at a time, or you want to do them both?
That's the way you want to do it, or we can do it both?
How do you want to do it? One at a time?
Totally up to the board.
What, is that your motion to approve the first one, sir?
Okay. I'll include the second
Okay.
motion, if that's okay.
All right.
Number 2, approve waiver request number 2, to waive the standard of 10-lot limitation for private roads in order to permit the proposed 11th lot based on equal or better performance.
Okay. Everybody understand the motion? And on this item, we aren't approving the subdivision, we're only approving the
Right.
waivers.
The planning board has approved the subdivision.
Right.
Subject to the future issuance of a waiver, which is the step we're on today.
And the subdivision wouldn't come to us other than the waivers.
Correct.
Okay. All right, have a motion to approve waiver 1 and waiver 2. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wilkins. Questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. The motion carries. Thank you. Next item is a resolution for additions to the state-maintained secondary road system, the landing at Cooperfield subdivision, and Mr. Tyson, that's yours as well, sir.
The North Carolina Department of Transportation has forwarded a petition submitted by the Homeowners Association at the Landon at Cooperfield subdivision to request the addition of the interior roads of the subdivision to the state-maintained secondary road system. You can see those roads outlined in red. Blue Heron Drive, specifically the rear portion. The front portion has already been adopted by the NCDOT for state maintenance. Then you have Green Winged Teal providing a connection to the north, and then finally Kingfisher Court, which runs this way. Each of these roads is a 60-foot wide public right-of-way, initially constructed and dedicated by the subdivision developer, Four Seasons Contractors, between 2012 and 2019. The DOT requires the adoption of a resolution by the local Board of Commissioners as a prerequisite for the addition of new roads in the county's jurisdiction into the state-maintained secondary road system. And the draft resolution has been attached in the board's packet for your review and adoption.
Questions on this item?
Mr. Tyson,
Yes.
does our receipt of this request mean that the roads have met all the requirements to be turned over to the DOT?
I'm not 100% sure. I think it would be unlikely that the DOT would send us the petition until they had come to an agreement with the homeowners association that the roads are eligible. I don't know that for a fact, but I think that is likely the case.
Thank you.
Other questions? Entertain a motion to approve or reject the resolution.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend that we adopt the resolution for addition to the state-maintained secondary road system for the landing at Cooperfield subdivision.
Have a motion to approve the resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Combs. Questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. Motion stands approved also.
Thank you.
Mr. Tyson. The 10th item is a public hearing concerning schedule of values, and I'll call on our tax assessor, Doris Sumner, at this time. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Yes, at this time, in keeping with General Statute 105-317, a public hearing on the proposed schedules and rules shall be held by the Board of County Commissioners at least 7 days before adopting the final schedules and rules. And as you all know, at the September 18th meeting, we presented the schedule of values to the board, and we also placed notices in the publications regarding today's public hearing regarding the schedules. If the board has any questions, we do have staff available.
Any questions of Ms. Sumner or staff at this time? Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Combs. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Belfield. Questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in a public hearing at this time to have any member of the public come forward and discuss our schedule of values for the upcoming reval. If there's anyone here that wishes to speak or has questions on this matter, please come forward. State your name and address for the record. Seeing no movement, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing.
Have a motion by Commissioner Belfield, a second by Commissioner Wilkins. Questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries. Any more discussion from the board? Do I really approve the public hearing, Mr. Durham? It's take for me to approve or deny the public hearing. Do I need
No. Yeah.
approve the public hearing? Well, I understood I thought we couldn't do that on this day.
Close the public.
Okay, all right. I think that's all the action we need to take on that item.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. And while you're there, don't go nowhere, your monthly tax report, please.
Yes, sir. In keeping with General Statute 105-360, Section 7, the tax collector will provide a monthly report showing the amount of taxes collected and efforts being made to collect taxes. This report is designed to keep the board current on activities in the tax collector's office. The report is for your information only and does not require approval. However, it is recommended that you accept the report so that it will be noted in the minutes.
Okay.
And if there are any questions on the report, I'd be glad to answer those.
Any questions of Ms. Sumner on the tax report? Seeing none, we take it for the record, and thank you for that item. Number 13 is tax release request, if you have any this month.
Number 12, I think, was tax refunds.
Well,
And
that's what I meant to say. I'm sorry, tax refunds.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any for this month?
And there are no refunds for consideration this month.
Okay.
And
And item 13 is a tax release request. And
Yes.
you would explain this one to them, which I
Yes,
did
sir.
call you, and I understand it now, but go ahead for the rest of the board.
All right. We do have this item before you today. It is a tax release request. This is dealing with two solar farms that we have in the county. Solar farm companies Fresh Air Energy and Phobos Solar recently contacted our office concerning the personal property value for their 2023 ad valorem tax bill. Upon reviewing the bills, it was discovered that an incorrect schedule was used to value the CIP, which is construction in progress, for tax year 2023. Per North Carolina General Statute 105-275, Section 45, solar farms are to be taxed on an 80% exclusion, which includes all CIP. However, when our office created the billing for Fresh Air 23 LLC and Phobos Solar LLC, the CIP portion of the value was incorrectly taxed using the T18 schedule, resulting in the CIP being taxed at 100% less depreciation. This would be correct for all other classes of CIP property. However, solar farm CIP is the rare exception. And the billing and correction details are as follow. Parcel 000011806 for Fresh Air Energy 23 LLC should have been taxed on a value of $29,797,494 rather than $35,012,056. This is a value reduction of $5,214,562. And the second one, parcel 000011645 for Phobos Solar LLC, should have been taxed on a value of $96,609,915 rather than $113,516,650. This is a value reduction of $16,906,915. Therefore, on behalf of Fresh Air Energy 23 LLC and Phobos Solar LLC, the tax office is requesting approval to correct the tax bills for 2023. So in summation, the solar farms receive an 80% exemption. But this CIP, construction in progress property, was taxed on a T18 schedule instead of getting the 80% exemption. So we are asking the board that we can make that correction.
Any questions on that item? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion for approval of the request.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Arrington. Questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, by a like sign.
Sorry about it.
Motion carries as well. Thank you,
All
ma'am.
right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
before Ms. Sumner leaves, may I take a point of privilege, please? I wanted to thank her for her leadership in the tax department, but also I see Eddie McCoy sitting there. And just last week, I had a constituent that had a rather a volatile situation concerning some property they owned. And Mr. McCoy was more than helpful. He was diligent. He diffused the situation. And I like to give credit sometimes where credit is due, especially when the person is present. So I just wanted to thank Mr. McCoy for his leadership on that matter, and he knows how it got. And I thank you for that leadership in the tax department. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilk. Okay, we're now moving on to item number 14, which is something we generally don't like to do, but service weapons and award request. Not that we don't want to do it, but we don't like to see people retiring. Sheriff, please come forward, sir.
See people retire.
Thank you, and I appreciate y'all's time to do this. Ms. Gwynn, thank you for attending our ceremony this morning. It means a lot to these officers. I have two officers. I'll call them up at this time. Major Strickland is going to disseminate the awards with it. However, at this time, Ollie Silver, William Murphy, come on up. First, I want to say what an honor it is to have two of these individuals to retire. One of these gentlemen spent 30 years with the Sheriff's Office, started with the Sheriff's Office and ended with the Sheriff's Office 30 years. That's remarkable. You know, you look at him today, he looks healthy, but think about the things that he's been through, the things that he's seen, and the things that he'll go with him the rest of his life, serving the people of Nash County. I appreciate the service that you gave to the people of Nash County, all the way from an SRO to an investigator to a lieutenant that is over our civil division, the days, nights, and holidays. I can't say enough of what service he's did for the people. I really appreciate it. Ollie Silver was a master sergeant in the Air Force. He spent 20 years in the Air Force, left and went to Arapahoe, Colorado, where he was a deputy sheriff, and later transitioned to Nash County, started with us, and worked as a SRO. Today, SRO is one of the most important positions that we have, dealing with our kids and the things that we're going through today. It's not an easy job, as someone might think, well, you're dealing with kids today. It's probably one of the most difficult jobs, because you've got to have the best interaction skills, the best de-escalation skills, and the ability to deal with young people and keeping up with all the things that they're going through. Social media has changed that in the last 20 years, and it's made it very difficult, and it takes high caliber officers as he's provided here. We're going to miss these two individuals, and the amount of time and effort they put in, it's hard to find new people coming along that have this type of ability to do what they do. So I want to ask the board if you'll give these two gentlemen their service weapons. And do we have those with us? At this time, Major Strickland will present these weapons. I thought we were. Stand by, we'll get a picture. And at this time, if y'all don't mind, we'll step here and take one picture.
Sheriff, I'm going to pause just a minute and let us do what we're supposed to do, which is grant those. So I'd entertain a motion for approval of the request at this time.
Make a motion to approve the request.
All right, I have a lot of motions and a lot of seconds. I will let the clerk decipher what we got here. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. The motion certainly carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, both.
Get out of the 14, I would. All right, we'll now move to item number 16, which is Northern Nash Water System Contract 3. Mr. Boone?
Thank you, Chairman, fellow commissioners. Item I have before you today is recommendation of award, or actually a recommendation to approve a resolution of tentative award, and then authorization for the county manager to execute the contract to Sanford Contractors for work on Contract 3 associated with the Northern Nash Water System. You may recall when the project was first envisioned, there were several elements incorporated into the project, particularly addressing water supply. At the time, the intent was to provide 3 groundwater wells to provide water to the Northern Nash Water System. That scope of that project was later revised to include a connection to the City of Rocky Mount to provide bulk water, and then to revise the number of groundwater supply wells to 2 wells, and this contract addresses those 2 elements. Contract was advertised for bid in May of this year, actually in April. Initial bid opening scheduled in May due to the lack of 3 bidders. A second bid opening was scheduled in June. Bids were open at that time. 2 bids were received, one from Sanford Contractors, the other from T.A. Loving. Bids were received at $4.1 million, rounded numbers, actually it's $4,135,351.20. And again, addressed 2 new groundwater supply wells, one at Wallet Mill Road, one on James Bunn Road, and then also incorporating the well that the county acquired from Aqua over in the Shepherd's Way subdivision into the Northern Ash water system. So 2 new wells and connecting an existing well into the system. But due to the bids received in June, it was actually on June 13th, staff and the Wooten Company evaluated a number of strategies to try to value engineer the project to see if we could find a more cost-effective way, a less expensive way, maybe I should say, to complete all elements of the project as proposed. And ultimately where we landed is a recommendation to revise the scope of the contract to include 2 of the 3 wells, the 2 wells being Wallet Mill Road and the well at Shepherd's Way, and then the line work to incorporate those wells into the system. And then we'll save the work on James Bunn for a later project. So again, my recommendation for you today is to approve the resolution of tentative award because there is funding associated with the project that was originally approved in the grant and the loan that the county received for this work. And then we will supplement the rest of the budget will be funded with ARPA funds that were approved by the committee to complete this work. And the amount of the contract will be $2,503,764.07. So with that, I'll pause and see if there's any questions from the board about the staff recommendation.
Any questions from board members?
Yeah.
Mr. Belfield?
This phase 2, does it cover the Griffin Township and also the Averton area?
So the matter I have for you today is contract 3, which is attached to phase 1. So the only work that will be done if this contract is awarded is to develop 2 groundwater supply wells to serve those customers that were included in phase 1 of the project. And that was the work that was completed in the fall of 2021. Now, we are working on a project to expand the water system. So we'll construct additional water mains, ideally an additional groundwater supply well and a booster pump station that will expand the water system north and west towards Aventon to the north, west towards Castalia and the NC 58 corridor. But that is phase 2 of the project. Contract 3 is actually associated with phase 1 of the project. Again, the work we completed in the fall of 2021, about 50 miles of water mains, an elevated water tank beside Red Oak Middle School. And this will provide an additional supply of water to serve those customers. Those customers today are served with water that the county purchases from the city of Rocky Mount. So this will allow us to reduce the amount of water that we purchase from the city of Rocky Mount to serve the customer in phase 1 and in future phases of the water system. But this is not, at this point in time, related to phase 2 or any additional water mains. This is really, there are some water mains, but they're specifically attached to incorporating the groundwater supply wells into the system, a limited amount of new water mains. Most of the expense is in the groundwater supply wells.
Other questions? Entertain a motion for approval of the request.
So move we approve the request.
Have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Questions on the motion? Second by Mr. Belfield. All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, sir. Item 17 is a Housing Community Development Block Grant, Neighborhood Revitalization 2023. I'll call on Ms. McGee at this time to make this request.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Nash County plans to apply, as you know, for Community Development Block Grant Neighborhood Revitalization Funds for a scattered site housing project. The goals of the program, the CDBG-NR program, are to rehabilitate deteriorated housing or reconstruct dilapidated housing for low and moderate income owner-occupied households. Household income shall not exceed 80% of the county's median household income. So in Nash County, to be eligible to participate in the program, a four-person household shall not exceed $56,650 in household income, according to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development fiscal year 2023 income limits summary. Eligible households must be located in Nash County outside the entitlement city of the City of Rocky Mount as determined by HUD. Nash County plans to utilize a housing selection committee to develop and implement a process to select program participants according to the adopted bylaws. Attached in your packet is a copy of the bylaws. I will mention that we have already taken applications 3 days last week, and we will also be taking applications October 9th through 13th. The recommended action is for the board to approve the Housing Selection Committee bylaws. If you have any questions, any concerns, comments?
Commissioner Harrington.
Just explain to the public why the city of Rocky Mount is excluded.
The City of Rocky Mount is an entitlement city, and it receives HUD funds. It receives funds directly from HUD. And so this program is for counties and municipalities that are not entitlement cities in North Carolina through the North Carolina Department of Commerce.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Or-
the Housing Select Committee, it looks like is, well, not mostly staff, but do we have any citizen on, it doesn't appear we have one citizen on that committee. Is it all staff or professionals? on it?
Yes, we've never had this before. This is a new thing, and it is proposed to be 3 staff members, the manager, myself, the community development project manager, and the consultant. But we could add people. I mean, this is the first time we've had this, so.
I would just be concerned of us not having at least one community person or even one regular employee that knows, I guess, the struggles of people trying to get some housing funds. So if that could be at least looked at.
If we want to do that, then we need to adopt these, I guess, with an amended, at
Is
least
it
the
in- is it-
position that
you're
I
saying
could
it's in the-
fill.
You're saying it's in the plan that it be these 4?
It's on this, yes, it's on these bylaws, which I'm asking you to adopt.
Okay.
Mr. Wilkins, you asking to have a citizen added to this list of 4? Or you asking it to be looked at?
I'm asking it to be looked at. I didn't, if it's in the laws or whatever, the statute that you have, that it be these 4. But
I didn't hear her say it was statute. that-
she just, I think she just said it.
I'm just saying, we're asking you to adopt these
No, what she-
bylaws, and these bylaws list the people.
What she's saying is, what we're adopting today has those 4 listed. But it's no reason why you can't add that
Okay.
person. if you
And
so
that's
desire.
what I would like, to at least add maybe even one.
And we can't
employee.
approve it subject to adding what you're asking.
That's what I'm asking.
Okay.
That one employee or one citizen. When I say employee, I mean an administrative employee or a citizen that maybe has received funds before that was approved, and they knew what they were wanting and looking at. I think that would be ideal, someone who has received housing funding before.
Well, why don't we state it to be one citizen then?
That sounds good.
It would be cleaner for the staff to adhere to, I
Yeah.
think. Is that okay, Ms. McGee?
Yes.
That would be my motion.
Okay. So the motion is to approve it as written with the addition of one citizen to the 4 people, individuals to serve on the Housing Selection Committee. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have that motion, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries and the request is approved.
Thank you.
If you would just, when you select that person, just report back to the board who that person is.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. All right, we're on item number 18, which is an ARP grant project ordinance amendment. And call on Donna Wood at this time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. The first item I have, as you indicated, is the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds Grant Funds. It's an ARPA grant project ordinance amendment. The amended ordinance is presented to budget a transfer of $179,156 from ARPA interest earnings to fund a one-time appropriation to provide assistance to the Nash County Volunteer Fire Departments for 75% of the cost of the TDMA Viper upgrades. These funds will be transferred to the general fund for the funds to be appropriated.
Any questions on this item? I think we're all pretty familiar with it. Seeing none, entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Combs. Questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries. 19, Local Assistance and Tribal Consistency Fund
Okay.
Grant Project Ordinance. Ms. Wood?
Okay. This item I have before you, it's the American Rescue, it's with the Local Assistance and Tribal Consistency Fund. I just want to give a little bit of a description for that. The American Rescue Plan appropriated $2 billion to Treasury across fiscal years 2022 and 2023 to provide payments to eligible revenue-sharing counties and eligible tribal governments for use on any government purpose except for lobbying activity. The purpose of the LATCF program is to provide additional resources to help counties recover from the public health and economic crisis caused by the coronavirus pandemic. Nash County was considered eligible to receive the funds as a revenue-sharing county that is independent of any other unit of local government and as the principal provider of government services for the area within its jurisdiction. Each eligible county could receive $100,000. Nash County has received these funds, which were paid in 2 tranches of $50,000 each. The first tranche was paid in January of 2023, and the second in August of 2023. There's been limited discussion regarding use of the funds. The focus, however, seems to be on the community economic jobs crisis. With that in mind, the ARPA committee met and discussed the use of funds and is recommending $50,000 to be used as part of the Work in Nash Regional Workforce Development Campaign through economic development. The goal of this campaign is to recruit and connect diverse, unskilled, and skilled employees to Nash County industries and local training opportunities through highly targeted digital advertising efforts. Funds are available until expended or returned to the Treasury. This ordinance is presented to set up a special revenue grant fund and to appropriate $50,000 of these funds to be used towards the Digital Solutions Program.
Questions on this item? Entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins. Second by Commissioner Arrington. Questions on that item? Seeing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. 50,000 stands approved, and the rest is going in contingency to be identified.
Later, at a later time.
Okay. All right, item number 20 is detention facility renovation expansion capital project amendment. Ms. Wood?
The attached project ordinance amendment is submitted for approval to amend the project ordinance to budget additional funding available from the project sales tax refunds and investment earnings to be used for supplemental construction expenditures. It's an increase of $212,000.
Any questions on this item? Seeing none, entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Leggett, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Combs. Questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries as well. Item number 21 is Northern Nash Fieldhouse Capital Project Amendment. Ms. Wood?
Okay, the attached project ordinance amendments presented to update the budget ordinance for the Northern Nash Fieldhouse Capital Project to move forward with the project. The total of this project is $5,126,500. The project will be funded by both Nash County and the Nash County School Board. Nash County will provide $3 million toward the project, and Nash County School will provide the remaining balance of $2,126,500.
Questions on this item? Yes, sir, Mr.
Didn't
Bellfield.
we approve funding for the field house in Northern Nash last year?
We approved $750,000. Is in the current year's budget, which you see noted here.
What changed it? I mean, to add on?
Well, we have now, 750 was to get the project started. We have now finished design and bid the project, and we're awarding based on what the bids were. And we committed, the county committed $3 million, and the school system is covering the rest of it. Our first approval in last year's budget was just to set up the fund and get money to start the architectural process.
Okay.
Ms. Wood, can you add to that, or is that correct?
It's my understanding also that the contract was recently approved, and so at first, we had a bid opening, and they redid the proposal for bids, and that's why it's coming back at this point. They've accepted a bid.
Right.
Or accepted a proposal for the construction.
Any other questions? I hope we approve it, because we had a ribbon cutting week before last, I think it was. Entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wilkins and Commissioner Bellfield. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries as well. Item number 22 is the budget amendments. I think we have 6 of them, Ms. Wood.
Okay, the following budget amendments are presented for the board's consideration for fiscal year 23-24. The first item is with Rural Operating Assistance Program funds. This budget amendment is presented to budget unspent fiscal year 23 funding for the Rural Operating Assistance Program and adjust the current budget to reflect no additional funding for fiscal year 24 from the state. No county funds are requested. It's for $238,653. The next item is for Department of Social Services. This budget amendment is to budget federal funds to assist adult protective services in addressing identified adult protective services needed where no other funding sources are available. These needs include medical care, food, clothing, and shelter. It's $4,096. No county funds are required. The third item I have is a budget amendment related to fund balance. And this budget amendment is to budget fund balance appropriated to pay off the debt service that we have on the Middlesex Shell Building Number 2 project in order to move forward with the sale of the property since it has been approved. The next item is with emergency services. This budget amendment is to make funds available from funds transferred to the general fund from the American Rescue Plan Fund interest earnings to provide funding for Nash County volunteer fire departments to cover 75% the cost of their TDMA Viper radio upgrade. It's $179,156. Next item is with aging services. This amendment's to reappropriate unspent fiscal year 23 aging services outside funding from Meals on Wheels donations. It's $3,943. The next item is with the school capital reserves. It's a fund balance appropriation. This budget amendment's to budget fund balance restricted for school capital to the Northern Nash Fieldhouse Capital Project. It's for $2,250,000 to transfer those funds.
Any questions on either of these 6 items? Item 6, item 3, we have in the past, when we sold the shell building, moved with the idea of using the funds to construct our next shell building. Seems like we've got funding lined up for the rest of them we're doing. Would we begin looking at 2 people on the front row, looking at another site at Middlesex to maybe construct a 3rd shell building there once the property is indeed sold? Just a statement of interest that doesn't need an answer, possibly. Thank you.
I would certainly hope so.
All right, with that said, do you have the 6, entertain a motion for approval?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Leggett, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Bellfield. Questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is Commissioner comments, and I would like to have a Chairman's Commissioner of the Month highlight at this time. You never heard of that before, and it's not going to happen every month, but we did have a significant thing happen this past week, I think, where we had a commissioner to go to Washington, D.C. last Wednesday, I think it was, and appear before the Agricultural Labor Working Group. And rather than me mess up what she did, I would ask Ms. Leggett to explain exactly what went on that day, as you see her very distinguished group that she's sitting there with. If you could share that with us, I thought it was worth mentioning this morning.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. So last week I did go to Washington, D.C. to represent agricultural producers. I guess really in our region of the country, we talked about agriculture labor. That is one of our agricultural producers that produce very labor-intensive crops. We want to make sure that we're able to safely and reliably produce those crops, and we bring in a lot of guest workers from other countries to help us do that. And really the points of discussion were how to sustainably achieve that and make those programs work very well for our employees, for our workforce, and for the employers as well. So you'll see in the picture there, on my right in the photo was Chalmers Carr, a large peach grower from South Carolina. And in the middle was Carlos Castaneda. He's a farm labor contractor in California, and then me. So, yeah, it was a great opportunity to represent the agricultural workforce and agricultural employers. So I appreciate it.
Cool. Good report. Benji didn't know I was going to do that. Heard a moment. Sorry about that. But it was a great reflection on Nash County, I thought, certainly worth mentioning. Any other commissioner have anything they wish to comment on the commissioners?
I was just going
Mr.
to
Belvin?
ask Commissioner Leggett.
Sure.
You talked about discussion of your agricultural workforce. What did you get into as it relates to that?
So there's various House of Representatives members on that committee, and all of them had an opportunity to ask us questions directly about our experiences with the H-2A visa program that we use. And that was kind of the main subject of the discussion, is the H-2A visa program, as it relates to everything from wages to housing, transportation, and then just the regulations that surround the program.
And I wish to thank our Senator Don Davis for providing Congressman. Senator, I did give him a promotion, didn't I? Well, not really. Congressman Don Davis, thank you, providing that picture to Commissioner Wilkins, who shared it with me. So you had mentioned to me you were going, but I don't think I'd had the picture other than Congressman Davis supplied it to Commissioner Wilkins, and I thank him for that. Other commissioners with comments?
Well, I asked that question because it's been one of the concerns that I've been thinking about, that especially the labor force in harvesting agricultural products. And something I think that we need to look at for the future, because you never know about labor force. You got to have it, especially in planting and harvesting agriculture here in America. There's a lot of people are leaving the workforce as it relates to agriculture, and which it appears, and there's nothing wrong with it, but that we may have to rely on migrants coming from other countries to fulfill those responsibilities.
Thank you, Mr. Belfield. If nothing else, I'll give a quick housing update as I try to do each month. During the month of September, our commercial permits equaled just over $1 million worth. New housing permits, which includes manufactured and modular homes, was a total of 60 for the month. So they are still doing very well, even with the interest rate rising like it is. So 60 is a great month for Nash County. That was by 22 different builders, so they are still dispersed throughout the county by different builders. A lot of them are local. The one thing I did notice, which I keep noticing, is the number of pools that have been built in Nash County and how expensive some of them are. Ms. Sumner, they totaled up to right at $500,000 this past month. I guess you catch those along the way, and one permit was in the range of $230,000 for a pool. So a lot going on in Nash County in the building industry, and sure appreciate all those that are adding to our tax base. With that said, I'll turn it over to the manager for her report at this time.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Just have a couple of announcements. We will be recessing this meeting to Monday, October the 9th, to have a joint school board meeting at Brown Auditorium at Nash Community College. Dinner will be served at 5:30, and the meeting will begin at 6 p.m. And then we're going to have a meeting of all four boards, the two boards of commissioners for Nash and Edgecombe County, and the two boards of education for Nash and Edgecombe County. That's going to be on Monday, October the 16th, at the Rocky Mount Event Center at 7 p.m. And that's to discuss the merger, demerger of the school system. And County Manager Eric Evans with...
What is that date for the four boards?
The four boards is Monday, October the 16th at 7 p.m. And Edgecombe County Manager Eric Evans and I will be in receipt of the plans. So I think up till now we've talked about a plan, but there are actually two plans, because Edgecombe is planning to take on children and Nash is planning to not have children. So there's actually two plans, but we will be in receipt of those plans by October the 9th, and I will forward those to the board once I have them. And then we will construct a joint resolution for all boards to be prepared by October the 27th, with the plan for the boards to consider adoption of the resolution at our November meeting. All of the boards at their November meeting hopefully will adopt that resolution. And then, of course, the deadline for submitting the transition plans to the state is November the 15th. And then just one last announcement, the Nash County Senior Center will host another Med Assist program where residents can get free over-the-counter medications. That's going to be Saturday, November the 4th.
They're looking for volunteers. If you'd like to know more about volunteering or how you can participate in receiving the free meds, please contact the Nash County Senior Center, and that number is 459-7681. And that's all I have.
All right, any questions of the manager on her report? I'd just say these meetings coming up about the school situation, particularly the one with the 4 boards, is very important. I hope all of your schedule will allow you to attend those. And we probably had possibly our last meeting last week, Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, or we may have another one. I'm not sure if we're going to have another one.
We have one more.
We're going to have one more,
Yes.
okay. But I've said it before, but I'll just tell you, they have gone extremely well. Everybody has worked together good, and it's been surprisingly a lot easier than what probably all of us thought it would be going into it. And really, we only got one it's a significant item, but only one item that hasn't been resolved quite yet, and that's associated with the federal requirement for the materials that were bought and in those schools to be, in other words, the county doesn't have the right to give those to someone else quite yet, even though the statute said that's what we would be doing. It was mostly along the line of computer equipment and things of that nature. But that's really the only thing we hadn't resolved, and staff and the attorneys are still working on that. But I'm just tickled to death at how well it has come together through the hard work of mostly the 2 superintendents of the schools and the staff that has worked on that. All right, if there's nothing else, we do have a closed session needed. Closed session will be for attorney-client privilege and economic development and one personnel matter. And we'll take about a 10-15-minute recess and then go into closed session. We will reconvene out here to recess our meeting until the 9th of October, as stated by the manager at Nash Community College. Anything else to come before the board before we go into closed session? Seeing nothing, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session at this time for the reasons stated.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkins, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries. Have a 10-15-minute recess. Thank y'all. I'll call us back into regular session at this time. There was no discussion taken in closed session that needs a vote in open session. Actually, no votes whatsoever, consensus votes or anything else. It was all just discussion on several matters that are protected with the attorney in closed session. Therefore, at this time, I'd entertain a motion to recess this meeting till October the 9th at, actually, meeting time is at 6 o'clock at Nash Community College. There will be a snack, I guess, of some sort about 5:30 for the commissioners, if you can be there at 5:30. But with that said, I'd entertain a motion to recess this meeting to officially at 6 o'clock on October the 9th at Nash Community College, which is a joint meeting with the Nash County Public Schools Board of Education, and that is our second meeting for the year that we generally make a point to do each year. Is what that meeting is about. I'm not sure what the subject matters will be. A little bit about the merger/demerger possibly, but that will be another meeting a little bit later. I'd entertain that motion at this time.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Leggett. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Combs. Questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries. We stand recessed until October the 9th.